Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Stone. I'm your host, Robert Runyon. Today, I'm gathered with Kyle Kostecha from ClickBank, and we are going to show you the best way to grow and optimize your business online, increase your average order volumes, and diversify your traffic sources, plus a few extras. That's coming up next on Behind the Stone. Kyle, thanks for being on the show. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Always, when I'm talking to you, Robert, I always know it's going to be good. So super excited to chit chat with you again today. It was so much fun last time. I'm excited to be back.
Hey, I really enjoyed our conversation out in Vegas. Absolutely love that. Affiliate Summit West, perfect. And the event.
It was a great time. And that restaurant was awesome. When it opened up and they had that whole picture, it was crazy. For those of you out there, check out Mr. Chow's. It is not only delicious, the environment is in true Vegas fashion is great.
I completely agree, and I'm so excited to speak with you about growing your business online. But before we hop into that, just give everybody a little bit of background about yourself, what you're doing today at ClickBank and go from there.
Yeah, so I'm business development manager over there, and really at a high level, what that means, I just work with online entrepreneurs to make more money in their business. Oftentimes with ClickBank on our platform, it should be a great place for people, but it's not always that way. And I actually have a background as a director of marketing for a health and fitness supplement company, which is a lot of, not entirely, but one of the ways that I was able to work with Sunken Stone because we were Sunken Stone clients. So, I have a lot of background with supplements, products, and realistically just scaling businesses in the digital space. And that's what I do today.
Thank you for sharing that. And actually, if you want to know Kyle's background and what he does at ClickBank specifically, I'll link an info card up here in the top to our first video, and you can learn all about ClickBank and what they do. So now that we've got all that covered, let's talk about growing your business online and offering helpful tips that will make others successful. So let's start from the beginning. Let's say, I do have a traffic source. I've got an offer that's converting. Maybe I've had some success, but I'm really ultimately looking for additional ways that I can reach new audiences. How can I do that exactly? Is that something that you see current customers having trouble with?
Yeah, well, I know this past year has been definitely, I think 2021 was definitely, at least in the digital marketing space, defined by a lot of change. Especially we saw so many people that were very heavily reliant and some businesses that were wholly reliant on Facebook. And Facebook has changed a lot over the last year and for a lot of different reasons. So talking to some experts and industry experts in this space, what really one of the big things that had from 2020 to 2021, 2020 was the year of large media buyers exiting their budgets on Facebook. And it was just right for new online entrepreneurs or new individuals to get great volume, make things easy. CPMs were lower. But over the pandemic, one of the things that happened for a lot of these big players, when they decided to reinvest in their ad dollars, they realized that traditional media with TV and things like that, and a lot of these bad contracts that they were kind of stuck into, the pandemic allowed them to exit those arrangements. And then they took a lot of that funding and they dumped billions with a B into Facebook advertising. And so it really changed the CPMs over the year on top of the changes to cookies and tracking, and people saw their returns in the ROAS just shrink a ton over the last year. And so the reason I bring that up is it's not necessarily that your offer is a problem, it's just your traffic sources change substantially. And that could sometimes create a lot of concern and fear, and I hear a lot of people talking about it, but the great thing is I've seen a lot of companies pivot in a lot of different ways. And so I would say the three big areas big things that people are trying to do is you have to pivot and diversify into multiple traffic sources. So you might be thinking, well, how do I do that? Or what are the traffic sources that I should jump into? And I tell you, there's really three that I think we could talk about today that I've seen for 2022 should be the place that you're jumping into to see some great results and make sure that you're diversified so you don't end up having that single fail point with what we're finding, especially in the social world, are volatile traffic sources.
What traffic sources would you suggest that advertisers start to use? What should they start to tap into? Is it in a logical progression? Is it 1, 2, 3, or do they just jump into all three of them at once?
Well, and so I would never recommend trying to jump into all three at the same time for really anything you're doing, just because too little focus on a lot of things is a great way to do a lot of nothing, but spend a lot of resources doing and accomplishing them. So pick one, do one at a time, and then test, keep things kind of limited and so forth when you jump into it. So that's a good precursor to all of this. The other thing too is I'm going to cover three. There are more, right? These are the three that I see as emerging, and I'll explain why I think they're really good traffic sources to jump into. But it's always it's what's right for each business owner and each product. And some of these things might not work on certain platforms if you're selling certain items. So just be aware that's kind of a little bit of a qualifier for this. But the three traffic sources right now are TikTok and Spotify this year. I think is going to be massive. I'm going to give a bonus one a little bit later. And then the other one that I'm involved with and always a great traffic source is affiliates. And we'll cover that last. I know we talked about that in the first video but I'll still highlight why it's a great source to always jump into as I smash my keyboard with my talking hand. So sorry for that large clunk noise. But to jump into the first one, just to cover it, is TikTok, which if you haven't heard about TikTok at this point, I don't know how you sanitize your brain from general knowledge about the internet. But tell me, I want to know your secrets because that sounds delightful. But TikTok is, in fact, just in 2021, late 2021, surpassed Google as the most viewed website on the internet. Google had previously held that record for 15 years straight. So TikTok is emerging. It's emerging fast. And for those that don't know, it's a short video platform that the real secret to its success isn't necessarily what the video content is, but it's the algorithm and the way that they feed it to people. So I won't go into all the details of how that works, but needless to say that they're getting huge growth in here. And when we originally started, and we'll say all the way back in 2020, it was really reserved for just very young audiences. You're not seeing that now. The ages and the demographics to where it used to be closer to like 70% were under the age of 20 that were using TikTok. You're now seeing realistically 60% are over the age of 30. 40% of the entire audience is over the age of 40. So you're still getting a large growth sector in that older demographic. And it's really mirroring a lot of what we saw from Facebook in the early days, which when you hear that, for people that have been doing this for a long time, early Facebook was a really, really high ROAS time for a traffic channel. So when you're in these early stages for these emerging platforms, it tends to mean compliance is easier to get away with, impressions and CPMs are going to be lower because not a lot of people have figured this out yet. The big money hasn't entered the market yet. It knows what Facebook is. TikTok is going to be in testing budgets for these markets, meaning that you have an opportunity to really take advantage of a traffic source before anybody else gets into it. On top of that, too, the engagement levels, we're seeing people making buying decisions from TikTok. If you look on their own, ad buyer platform and go to other places and studies that are being run, it's showing that people are making buying decisions from TikTok. They look at what the TikTok organic creators are using, whether you go organic or even the paid media ads. People are getting ROAS on that stuff. So that's a huge traffic source that I would focus on, especially if you have a demonstrative product or a lifestyle product. Something that in a short form video, you're going to be able to make it last. So if YouTube is your channel that's been successful, naturally going over to TikTok should make sense. If Facebook was successful for you, TikTok should be a medium that would make sense, with the one caveat that you need to make TikTok specific ads. It doesn't back convert. I can't take the strategy that I was using on Facebook and just shove it into TikTok and think that it's going to work. It won't. The algorithm won't like it, and in general, the users won't like it as well. So you're not going to get that ROI. So make sure to actually look at the ads, look at the way that they're structuring these short video ads, and make content or ads specifically for TikTok. But that's definitely an emerging traffic source that you should focus on.
So it's interesting.
Ready for number two, or you have any questions about good old TikTok?
It's interesting that you bring up TikTok, because I'm just going to share a little bit of my expertise on TikTok, because it actually, the algorithm depends on the watch time, right? And that's how your video gets shown to more people. So if you create a video that people watch for longer, if it's a 15-second video, then if you watch 100% of the video, it's shown to 10 people, and then it's shown if they all watch it for the full amount of time, then it's shown to 100 people, and then 1,000 people, and then 10,000 people, and it just grows like that. And that's your audience. And so your channel should always be about what your product is. So like when somebody visits your page, they know what type of content that they're going to get, which is really neat and will bring us into our next traffic source. So we talked about TikTok being like the top visited website in the world now. It brings us as a great transition into the second traffic source, which is what exactly, Kyle?
Yeah, so Spotify is the next one. That's one that I really focus on. And so this is going to sound a little bit, and one thing I just want to highlight too, just go back before we jump into that on TikTok, because you did a great job explaining why it's so popular. A lot of its virility or things going viral happens so fast on TikTok more than any other platform, the way that the algorithm serves up content. So, and just give you an idea, YouTube, it took PewDiePie about a decade to get to 100 million subscribers. It was 14 or 16 months for the top TikToker to scale all the way up to 100 million subscribers. So vastly faster in terms of how you could organically make things go viral. And you put paid efforts behind that, I imagine you get some pretty exciting things that happen on TikTok. We're going to talk about another exciting thing, which the great thing about it, what's so exciting is it's almost pulling in media that isn't new at all. And that's with Spotify. One of the things that we should expect to see this year, and they're already in this testing phase and beta testing for it, and you could experience it, which is podcast advertising on Spotify. So a couple of reasons why that's so exciting. One, for anyone that's tried to do any podcast advertising, you understand that it is really fractured and dynamic insertion is really expensive. And it's still the data that comes back to you isn't fantastic. And a lot of that is because for dynamic insertion, I'm only available or accessible for whatever podcast that particular hosting company has access to. And then my bids tend to have to be, or my minimum buys are going to have to be most likely in the 6-figure range or at least higher for me really get some traction on it. It's frustrating, right? But we know through podcasts that people are buying stuff off it. It's a really viable traffic channel because people tend to sit and listen to your ad, especially if it's pre-roll and then mid. So during the podcast are the 2 slots. So there's 3 slots in podcasting. There's pre-roll, there's mid-roll, and post-roll. Post-roll is afterwards. It tends to be the cheapest. It's least effective because when it's over, most people aren't going to listen. They're just going to bail. But pre meaning right at the beginning of the podcast and then mid are really, really valuable. And we see people make tons of buying decisions, especially given that people are listening to podcasts for entertainment, but also information. They're talking about something. There's some sort of ideas shared, even if they're funny and goofy, but it really allows for some great segmentation and access to audiences. So with Spotify opening up their own ad platform, a lot of exciting things for that. First, it gives you the ability to actually control and insert ads where you have control on a pre-post and mid-roll slot times. And it doesn't matter what they're doing in the podcast. You don't have to know. These aren't native read. This is just you inserting an ad in those spots dynamically and then putting in Spotify's interest-based information that they have, as well as third-party data to really segment your audiences in a way that you can't get from other podcasts. I can now insert user data because what does Spotify have? They don't just have hosted podcasts, they have user information. I have an email, an individual that is listening to music and showing interest in podcasts and getting all this powerful data. And then I now have access to that when I'm targeting them, which is something you don't have anywhere else. So super, super powerful traffic source there. And on top of that, they have a little studio that allows you to create your own audio ads. So super, super easy. I think this is gonna be a game changer, especially if your product requires a little bit more information. You need people to learn more. You need people to understand what your value is going to be. With the podcasting platform, Spotify, I think it'll be a fantastic way to do that. So for the third and final one we have is the affiliate side of things. So the reason I bring this up is oftentimes you've had a traffic source that's working, or you want to diversify, but it gets really overwhelming. one of the great things about why affiliate is such an awesome traffic source is because it's a traffic source of all the traffic sources, meaning that I could pay other people that have expertise in something like TikTok and YouTube and email traffic or blogging or whatever, podcasting, all these things. And I pay them a percentage to do what they do best, and I get new customers. So affiliates are a great way to put your hand in for a lot of different traffic sources. If you're struggling right now, can make a lot of sense. Some things you just want to be mindful of if to make sure that affiliates are right for you. A lot of times it's what kind of margin do you have in your product, and essentially what can you offer to affiliates to really go out and scale your business. I know lots of times I get people to think, hey, 5-10%. They think of more of like a referral program where it's a passive bonus. But a passive bonus is going to get you passive sales, meaning that no one's that motivated by 10%. They might put it out there, they might take some dollars as they come in, but they're not going to be pushing the volume that's really going to change your business at those lowest percentages, unless you're already a massive brand.
So what margins are we looking at?
Yeah, well, I like to think you need to be able to support, more ask yourself from a CPA perspective, how much am I paying to acquire a customer right now anyway? And if those numbers where you feel healthy and comfortable, depending on your offer or product, the physical product, if you could convert over 2% to 2.5%, and you could pay a CPA on that between $50 and $60, you're probably in a good spot. If it's a supplement though, you really need to be in the direct response space. You need to be paying out over $100. So if you have a CPA that's in between $100 to $150, you're already set to be able to kind of shift into affiliates with our realm, the direct response space, which could translate to thousands of new sales and new customers every single day for you when it's at scale and when it's doing well. So it could be a massive game changer in your business if you could support those margins. If that's something you can't do, it's not to say that affiliates aren't a good source for you, but you might try some of the first two traffic sources first if you don't necessarily have those healthy margins. Just because you won't necessarily get the scale potentially with affiliates. Not necessarily guaranteed. You can still obviously do that, but it might be a little bit more work at the beginning to get the offer tweaked and ready to go. For those that aren't sure if affiliates are right or even the other traffic sources, I think one thing too is that you can always reach out to me with any questions. Happy to answer. We'll have a link for that. And then the other thing too is we have a scale score which tells you, are you ready for affiliates? Are affiliates really right for you? So you can go through and answer some questions, and it'll give you an idea if you are ready, if you can answer those questions yourself. The other thing too, if you're always curious on just, if you like listening to podcasts, we always have a bunch of YouTube videos as well in our own podcast that discuss all things affiliates and really just online marketing. So there's stuff well beyond affiliates that we talk about. In fact, I just recently had a conversation with somebody and we didn't talk anything about affiliates. It was really all just about, I believe Facebook. We just had a big Facebook conversation and media behind it. So, and another one that was on Google and how you could be reframing your SEO. So there's a lot of great information in there that should work for you. But yeah, again, thanks so much for the time, Robert. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully we're able to help some people out today, getting some new traffic sources and unlocking something different in business. So 2022 is a fantastic year for you, especially if you're in the pinch of 2021 seeming like a disastrous one.
And if you need any help getting that affiliate program set up, you can reach out to Kyle and the team at ClickBank. They're there for you. They support, they care. Kyle, I appreciate you for being on the show. I'll leave a link in the description box below this video to visit ClickBank. Kyle, as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you, and I love having you on the show. Can't wait to sit down and have another nice dinner with you. But you have a wonderful day, have a wonderful week ahead of you, and let's make 2022 awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Robert. Bye.
All right. Cheers. If you really want to level up your e-commerce strategy, then watch this video next. It's called 5 Proven E-commerce Marketing Strategies to 10X Your Business. You'll learn insider secrets from Tanner Tozan and CEO Adam Weiler on how to scale 7- and 8-figure e-commerce businesses. Just click on your video and I'll see you on your screen now.